Colorado has 2 firefighting helicopters that can't fly, so the state's going to buy some more helicopters. Our next conversation with a trailblazing bishop who today saw her church catch up with where Colorado's Methodists have been for years.
I really believe that we can have unity without uniformity, that diversity is actually a gift.
Marshall Zellinger is tackling your feedback about why we are questioning Xcel's preemptive power shutoffs with insight from emergency managers who have some of the same questions. And a chance to send a strong message that Colorado loves animals and doesn't put up with the people who harm them, as we support a nonprofit that's moving mountains to keep people together with their pets. That's tonight on Next. You heard on Next how Colorado's got $20 million firefighting helicopters that cannot fly. So the state's going to solve that issue by buying more helicopters. At least these ones will be a lot cheaper, because our Mark Salinger found Colorado is done with sharing firefighting aircraft with other states.
Helicopters like these are critical in Colorado. For years now, the state has contracted them to help fight fires. Now Colorado is buying 2 Bell 205 helicopters, so it doesn't have to share resources with places like California and New Mexico.
Historically, Colorado has relied on an interstate pool of aircraft.
The governor and the head of the state fire agency held a press conference last month, assuring everyone Colorado is more prepared for fires than ever.
By shifting our resources to a model that allows us to respond more effectively to what is no longer just a wildfire season.
We now know a little more about how those resources are shifting. The state is spending $6.9 million to buy 2 new helicopters, fuel trucks, parts, and equipment from the company it's contracted with for the last 7 years. That company closed down abruptly in January, and Colorado stepped in to buy everything for a bargain price. A bargain, considering the state also spent $50 million to buy 2 converted Black Hawk helicopters. The 2 Firehawks, as they're called, have been delayed for years. The first is just now about to start flying. It's all part of a new strategy to buy the equipment ourselves instead of sharing with other states.
There's fires in California and fires in New Mexico, and resources are deployed there, and there aren't any left for Colorado when we need them.
These helicopters the state is now buying are the ones that they use to fight fires at night. They have night vision capabilities, which we've seen the state lean into with helicopters, not aircraft, though. Considering that Colorado spent nearly $2.3 million last year to pay pilots of that Firehawk helicopter to fly a helicopter that doesn't actually fly yet, spending $6.9 million to buy 2 helicopters and all the equipment that comes with them that actually do fly, seems like a good deal, Kyle.
In a warmer, drier West, you're seeing more states and even smaller municipalities wanting their own control of firefighting resources.
Exactly. You even have counties in Colorado that don't want to share with the rest of the state, or at least want their own firefighting aircraft in case there's a fire in their county to prioritize that. Douglas County, for example, has entered into contracts in past years for their own helicopters specifically, so if there's a fire there, they won't have to wait for it to come from across the state.
Interesting. Mark Salinger, thank you. Pro-Palestinian campus protests are crawling with cameras right now. And like a moth to a flame, that's where we found Republican Congresswoman Lauren Boebert today, who showed up at one of those protests in Washington, D.C. to argue with college students and threaten their school's federal funding. Democrats and Republicans have condemned the most extreme elements of these protests, but Republicans are working to set this up as a campaign issue. So today, Boebert was part of a contingent of House Republicans who showed up at a pro-Palestinian protest on the George Washington University campus. Boebert's on the Republican-led House Oversight Committee, which is calling for a hearing on the protests next week, as well as wanting to look into allegations that law enforcement in D.C. refused to break up a student encampment. Boebert was greeted on the university campus by chants of Beetlejuice, a reference to her belligerent vaping and groping incident at the theater here in Denver. Boebert unsuccessfully tried to rip a Palestinian flag off a George Washington statue on campus, then threatened that Congress would withhold federal funding from the university if they did not end the protest.
This is not the summer of love, and we are not bowing a knee to the terrorists who caused the riots and chaoses in our cities anymore. And if the faculty here, who many are involved in this right now, if they don't want to do something to address this, well then kiss your federal funding. funding, goodbye.
The House Republicans were asked by reporters there what legislative authority they have over a private university. Florida Rep. Byron Donald said it's because of the federal funding that's provided for the District of Columbia. 3 Republican candidates in Colorado say they do not want the endorsement of their own party as the state GOP now jumps into primaries to help far-right candidates defeat more moderate Republicans. It's the latest sign of the very visible split that is tearing Colorado's minority party apart at the seams. GOP leaders recently dropped neutrality rules so that they can help hard-right candidates who come out of the assembly process instead of the method of gathering petition signatures. That gave automatic endorsements to Congresswoman Lauren Boebert as well as Colorado GOP Chair Dave Williams as they run in GOP congressional primaries. But in some other races, more than one Republican got on the ballot through their preferred method, the assembly. So now the state GOP's asking those candidates to fill out a questionnaire to prove their far-right credentials. Congressional candidates Gabe Evans and Stephen Varela, who both won top line on the ballot through their assemblies, say they do not want the state GOP's endorsement, and they told party leaders to not interfere with their races. State school board candidate and former state party chair Christy Burton Brown is also telling Republican leaders she does not want the party's endorsement. She's been highly critical of the current GOP chair Dave Williams using party resources to benefit his congressional campaign and attack his Republican rivals. One of the largest Christian denominations in America made history today, led in part by United Methodists here in Colorado and the Greater West. United Methodist Church delegates overwhelmingly voted to repeal their church's ban on LGBTQ clergy. This vote had been years in the making, and it caused an enormous rift within the church. The decision today overturns a 40-year-old ban on quote-unquote practicing homosexuals being ordained, a trail that was blazed by a Methodist bishop now living in Denver. Bishop Karen Olavito, the UMC's first openly lesbian bishop, oversees more than 300 congregations in Colorado and nearby states. Church leaders allowed those Western churches to elect her bishop despite the ban. Our next conversation tonight is with Bishop Olavito, who joined us from North Carolina after today's historic vote.
I think the message is that you are beloved. God made you. The United Methodist Church loves you, wants to nurture who God made you to be, and honor, if you have a call from God and you have the gifts and graces, wants to honor you in this church through ordination.
I imagine that given your visibility, you've probably had a lot of private conversations over the years with people who felt that call to serve but didn't feel like there was a pathway open to them.
I have talked with young people across the connection, with older adults who have felt this call, haven't known how to make where the pathway could be for them.
The impending decision by the United Methodist Church led to what's been described as the largest schism in American religious history. About a quarter of the congregations in the United Methodist Church decided to leave. Was it worth it?
You know, I must admit, I did not want to see schism happen, because I really believe that we can have unity without uniformity, that diversity is actually a gift. And so to have people leave specifically because they didn't believe that homosexuals could have a role and place in the church really grieved me. It's been a painful birth, but the church is being resurrected again.
When our conversation with Bishop Olivo continues, I'll ask her about the rise of Christian nationalism in the U.S., as well as her message to young people, simultaneously navigating questions about their faith as well as their identity. People in Colorado, people in Jefferson County, love animals. There's no doubt about it, and have no tolerance for the kind of people who would mistreat them. If you ever doubt that, just walk in the doors of Foothills Animal Shelter. But I want to talk to you tonight about the people who walk in the doors of Foothills with a pet that they love, but feel like they have to give up for financial reasons. And I want to tell you about everything that nonprofit does to keep them together. That's why we're supporting Foothills Animal Shelter with this week's Word of Thanks microgiving campaign. Foothills goes to incredible lengths to keep people from being forced to give up their pets for financial reasons. Their Better Together program offers 10 days of emergency housing for pets whose people are in crisis. They provide the needed vet care, the pet food and supplies that people can't afford. Foothills was actually the first animal shelter in Colorado, as far as they know, to hire a social worker to help people through the struggles that are leading them to surrender pets that they love, helping to connect people with resources from Foothills and from community nonprofit partners. The fact is, there are people who will often take care of their pets' needs before they take care of their own needs. And how many of us have a story about a pet who helped us through the hardest time in our life? Keeping people and pets together can save both of them. Scan the QR code on your screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491 to get that link to donate. You know that even $5 helps, and as always, I'll match the first 50 donations of $5 to get us started. We are like this close to 2,500 of you signing up to simplify your giving with a monthly donation to the Word of Thanks Fund. Here's what that meant. It means that we have started our recent micro-giving campaigns with almost $20,000 in donations every week. That's astonishing. When Next returns, I'll ask a trailblazing bishop what she makes of the rise of Christian nationalism.
We're seeing a perversion of Christianity. Christianity is based on two things: love God and love your neighbor.
And some very fair feedback from Next viewers wondering why we are questioning XL's preemptive blackouts so much. We'll explain and talk about why emergency responders are questioning XL too.
Welcome back. I'm meteorologist Kathy Sabin. We're tracking severe thunderstorms on the eastern plains. Severe thunderstorm warning out for Yuma County until 6:45 for a cell that is racing toward the northeast, dropping 1.25-inch diameter hail. Rain expected in the metro area and snow is expected to pick up as a cold front moves from north to south along the Front Range. Tomorrow will be cooler but dry. You're going to love the weekend forecast. Our high at 71 in Denver today, almost 90 in Lamar. But that front brought some extremely gusty winds this afternoon out of the northwest, and they're pushing these thunderstorms out into Nebraska and Kansas, where they will go severe late into the night, dropping heavy rain, large hail, and damaging winds. We're tracking foothills snow showers and the potential for more rain right here in Denver. Severe weather threat remains east of Colorado for the most part tonight and tomorrow, with the exception of extreme eastern Colorado. And we've got a pretty good chance at seeing some showers tonight, but we've got a sunny day for you tomorrow once the rain showers come to an end in the wee hours of the morning. Thunderstorms return on Friday. We've got a gorgeous weekend with sunshine and 70s for Sunday and Monday.
We return now to our conversation with United Methodist Bishop Karen Olavito of Colorado, as the church today struck down a ban on gay clergy. She had received essentially an exception when she was elected the church's first openly lesbian bishop. Those who self-identify as Christian nationalists, or who could be fairly described as Christian nationalists, have been increasingly bold in recent years about asserting their desire for dominance over the American public and American policy and American law. What do you see as the role for Christians or people of any faith who don't share those ultra-conservative views, who might be hesitant to insert their faith into the public square in a similar way?
Kyle, that's a critical question right now, because we're seeing a perversion of Christianity. Christianity is based on two things: love God and love your neighbor. Love doesn't harm. Love doesn't seek to have power over. Love doesn't seek to control. And I think it's time for those Christians, we Christians who hold to that love, to love more boldly in the public square, to show the breadth of human diversity and to protect one another's rights, not try to limit each other's rights.
A final question for you. There is a culture war being waged these days against LGBTQ people. Most specifically, though, LGBTQ kids. The kids are the focus of a lot of discussions these days, and teen years are when people are figuring things out, including sorting out their faith, which is not something that's talked about a whole lot.
Yeah.
I remember reading how you preached your first sermon as a teenager. I'm curious, on a day like today, what message would you have to young people who are simultaneously navigating both their faith and their identity?
I would say this: God loves you. God made you, and your task is to grow into the fullness of who God wants you to be. And the task of the rest of us is to help you do that, to celebrate you. And if you find yourself queer, questioning, the church should be the safe place for you to do that. Know you are loved no matter what.
In our full Next conversation posted on the Next YouTube channel, Bishop Olivito explains why she's comfortable with the new rule that allows United Methodist clergy to refuse to marry same-gender couples.
Yes, it's windy, but the fire danger conditions were not the same as the Marshall Fire.
It's not just that pesky Marshall Zellinger. Firefighting experts have some real questions about why Xcel chose to preemptively cut off power. We're getting some feedback about our investigation of Xcel's preemptive power shutoff for more than 50,000 customers during recent high winds. Feedback from Bill, Michael, Jim, Steve, Eric, Doug all essentially said that we're being too harsh on Xcel because keeping their equipment energized that day could have started a fire. So our Marshall Zellinger spoke with Boulder County's point person on wildfire risk to talk about what happened that day.
You can imagine the concern in Boulder County whenever the wind blows. The wind was the primary concern when Xcel Energy shut off power to more than 50,000 customers on April 6th, the first public safety power shutoff that Xcel has used in Colorado.
I'll pull up, what the conditions were on that beginning of April.
Boulder County Fire Management Officer Seth McKinney looks at three factors when it comes to the potential for a fire to spread: weather, topography, and fuels, meaning grass or weeds.
Our fuels are really green. We felt that the fire danger wasn't as high when considering those three factors instead of just looking at the wind.
The power shutoff left Boulder's wastewater facility at risk of overflowing sewage into Boulder Creek. That did not happen with about 10 minutes to spare. Through an open records request, we found that Boulder's Disaster Management Office sent Xcel a letter under the subject wastewater facility power outage. That letter included a paragraph from the city's fire chief and from McKinney explaining the conditions on April 6th were not like the Marshall Fire.
We wanted to give some insight to Xcel as to what we were seeing, what we were considering, at the ground level in fire management. Yes, it's windy, but the fire danger conditions were not the same as the Marshall Fire.
Xcel took the most extreme step in parts of 6 counties, shutting off power proactively instead of risking a power line in the wind starting a fire.
If we did have, a power line, start a fire, it wasn't going to have the same spread potential like we'd seen previously.
In Boulder County, for Next, I'm Marshall Zellinger.
Back with your heartfelt feedback next. There are people who love their pets and who walk into Foothills Animal Shelter in Golding having making the heartbreaking decision to give them up for financial reasons. And they walk out with their pets because of Foothills Better Together program. That nonprofit's program, guided by a social worker, helps people find resources from Foothills and their partners so that they don't have to give up their pet, which could be key to getting them through whatever crisis they're facing. To join me in supporting Foothills, scan that QR code on the screen or text the word THANKS to 303-871-1491. Jennifer says, thank you for your heartfelt comments about the value of keeping pets and their people together. Having been provided therapy by our dear Beagle girl Sadie during my health crisis, I appreciate that. Shirley says, given recent news stories, we need to pay even more attention than usual to caring for our furry and feathered friends. I will say this, Shirley, there is never a bad time to do a good thing in our community. See you next time.